Well, hi, everybody. My name's Graham Weber, and it's time to connect.
Hey, Graham Weber, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, John. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for taking the time to connect. You are a busy man, so I appreciate your time. I say you're a busy man. You're doing solo stuff. You're doing Western youth stuff. You've got a jazz combo. You're a super active dad. You're playing shows. I know I think you've got some at least one, if not two, records coming out soon, which I hope we'll talk about. Yeah, what drives you, man? You're a super busy guy. What keeps you going?
Well, I'm not really qualified to do much else. So, you know, my daughter, being a, that's, and being broke most of my life. I just have this inherent fear of, I've lived in my car, and I can't do that with a 6-year-old. So, just got to keep hustling. So,
Yeah.
and it's, I've been bored for 2 years too. So it's right back from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour once everything started clearing up. So.
Yeah. Speaking of the last 2 years, it's been tough on all of us, but as I've talked to several other guests, there are some silver linings to this thing. I mean, we all kind of discovered the power of live streaming, and by the way, thank you. You played on a couple of my live streams, and I appreciate that. And I guess ironically, we kind of figured out new ways to connect with people. Were you really bored for a couple of years? Let me just ask you how you dealt with the last 2 years. What was it like for you?
Well, I wasn't. I'm. I mean, we were my band was the band I'm in, Western Youth. We were doing really good at the end of 19, and
Yeah.
and I felt like we had some momentum, and we had a lot of plans, and so that was really the hardest part. And and to even say that, a lot of people died. There's a lot
Right.
of people that had real problems, and
Right.
I was able to keep I'm the artistic director for an organization called the House of Songs,
Right.
which is based on, in person, at the time, international collaboration between artists from around the world with artists in the States. And so that we had to pivot on that, but I was able to keep my job. It changed a lot, but, due to, thanks to technology, we were able to do a lot of co-writing and collaborating, facilitating that via this, something very similar
Right.
to this,
Yeah.
which isn't optimal, but it was okay. But that kept me busy, and we were able to give a lot of gear to artists in Arkansas, and then I made an album with pretty much just myself and my friend Britton Beisenhurst out at Ramble Creek Recording in Oak Hill, Texas. And then throughout, when things were okay, Western Youth would get back in and chip away at this thing that was supposed to be done in 2020. And so we made, it was, everything kind of went to a much slower pace, but the silver lining, like you said, is that, well, my Spanish got a lot better. I was on Zoom school every day with a girl in kindergarten in a bilingual program. So I know kindergarten Spanish now, and
muy bien.
That's about all I got. Yeah.
Yo quiero un cerveza.
Yeah, I knew that one. I knew that one from my wild times down in Baja. But I got to spend a lot of time with my daughter, and honestly, before the pandemic, I can remember. I was gone a lot. I was traveling for the House of Songs, and also for the band, and for other things, and just I was not home very much. And even if I was in town, I wasn't home very much. So at that time, she was 4, 5, 6, and that over the past 2 years, and that I'm not probably going to have another kid. She was kind of a blessing and a surprise, and so just to know that I could have that time with her, that's pretty good,
Yeah.
So So that was great. And I kind of got to, my wife and I got to, she travels a lot for her job as well. So like most people who are in a relationship, I mean, I think especially busy people, that wasn't the easiest thing for a while,
Right.
just to
Yeah.
be contained.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the long run, it was a really good thing. I mean, to actually get to, if you can get through that, if you
Yeah.
can get through your sentence with your cellmate, and you don't kill each other, then I think it's a
Right.
victory. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of your daughter, man, it's just been charming, the posts you've made with you and her. And I also have daughters. I've got a 21-year-old about to graduate from college, which is mind blowing. But I have an 11-year-old, and a lot of the stuff that you post with your daughter reminds me of my daughter and I. And man, there's nothing like it. It's pretty special, and yeah, it's really cool. And I got to meet her last week at one of your shows at South by. That was cool. She ended up she drew something on my hand. I think she told me that I was she chose me as being House of Gryffindor, I think. Is she into
Oh,
Harry
that's a
Potter?
good thing. That's a good one. That's
Yeah.
Harry Potter's house.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I should take that as a compliment. Well, speaking of shows, you have a couple solo shows upcoming and also a couple Western Youth shows. Is that right?
Yeah. Upcoming. Yeah, we've got we're playing out at the Circuit of the Americas, and then we've got, yeah, I know we're going up to Arkansas. Actually, we're gonna play some shows up there. Oh, hey, nice shirt.
Yeah,
I
thanks,
gotta
man.
get you on the website.
Yeah,
We need
there
a
you go.
model.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing some solo stuff again. I haven't done in a while. That's kind of what I started out doing for a long time. And I've been in some other bands, but I've always been, kind of a solo singer songwriter. And I'm getting to play with my mentor and Slade Cleaves when I moved
Right
to
on.
town. He took him and his wife Karen really took Michelle and I in, both literally and figuratively. And he brought me out on tour for a few years, and we lived in their house and just in their family. They're our Texas family, and our family has grown exponentially over the past 18 years. But we didn't know anybody, and they were so kind to us. And anyhow, Slade's got some new music, and he's playing in Austin in June, and June 18th. And he asked if I would do the warm-up. So
That's cool.
yeah, I'm excited about that show. It's going to be a lot of fun. I played hundreds of times, I think, with Slade, but I haven't done it, and it's been, I don't know, 7-8 years. So
yeah,
it'll be a lot of fun.
and that's a whole different thing, man, playing solo as opposed to playing with a band. It's obviously it depends on the venue and everything, but it's a whole different kind of skill set. But you said you start off doing that more. Did I count it right? You have 5 solo records out?
2, 3, 5 studio records, and 2 live records, and then different bands have put out albums and stuff like that. And I've got the 6th solo record is in the can, and it's mastered, and
right.
I just don't know what to do with it. So I'm hoping that somebody wants to do something with it. So
we'll put that thing out for us, man. One of the things I dig about you is the way that you remind me of this guy a little bit right here, if you can see that, Neil Young. In the sense that you move kind of just so gracefully between being kind of an acoustic folk artist and then rock and rolling with a powerful band. Is that just something that has always come naturally to you? And I'm curious what you think about Neil Young, by the way, since I called out that name.
Well, first of all, I love Neil Young. I'm a huge fan. So thank you for even being mentioned in the same breath as Neil Young is an honor. But I won't say it was like, when I started, I was in Kent, Ohio, when I started playing for money for the most part. I'd done some like private things and some weddings and some things like that, for friends. But I joined a band. I kind of scammed my way into a band saying I could play piano, which I sort of can, but I'm not a piano player. But I joined up with this band I really liked, these guys that I would go see a lot. And the front man hosted an open mic that I ended up taking over. And anyways, his name's Roger Hoover. And the band was called the Whiskey Hounds, and they were a kick-ass rock and roll band. And I was a big fan. So I I was younger, a lot younger than everybody else. I think I was 21, and everybody else was, late 20s, early 30s, and maybe even, I think there might've been a guy in his 40s or something like that. But they were killer band. And so I kind of bullshitted my way into letting me be in the band, and then open the shows. And then 6 months later or something, it became pretty clear that they didn't. I switched to acoustic guitar, which is oddly there were two really good guitar players, and then I played acoustic, which is what I'm doing now. 20 years later. So except I'm I get to sing. I get to sing the songs I wrote in this band. So but I loved being in a rock and roll band. I never really had one in high school, but I love rock and roll. And so then after, when I moved here, I was solo for a long time, and then had a few little bands where I could play electric guitar, which I don't really do that often. I did for a few years in Western Youth. I played a Rickenbacker, and I've got an SG I really like. And I love playing a Telecaster. I joined a band called So Long Problems with my friend Mike Schoenfeld and some other guys, which was, I was in the band. I was a big part of that band. And I listened to the record the other day for the first time in years, looking for songs for this new solo project I was doing. And the record holds up, and it's a solid rock and roll record. It's, it's
cool.
I know it was very heavily influenced by like early Wilco and things like that, which is fine, which is exactly what we were trying to do. So
exactly.
Gonna rip somebody off. So but I like the dichotomy. It's also a lot. After playing solo for so long, just myself or me, and maybe my wife Michelle would sing with me, or we'd have some different smaller lineups. But there's nothing like playing rock and roll with a kick-ass band behind you, and it's a pretty good drug. And it doesn't hurt anybody really. My ears maybe a little bit, but otherwise but I like both. I like all kinds of music, so I think it's fun to try different things. And life's short, so you might as well try all the flavors of ice cream, right?
Amen. I've never thought about this. I always go to Neil Young when I think about someone in the early days who had that switch from electric to acoustic so gracefully. But Dylan, of course, when Dylan went electric in '65, he kind of showed the world, I can be an acoustic folk singer. I can come out here and rock with the band, So I think that's a tradition we're all kind of firmly in, and that moved through Uncle Tupelo and all those guys, Slobberbowen, and Brent Best is very much in that same kind of tradition, and you are too, man. You're carrying it on. You're as a phrase says with one of your photos on your website, you are an old young man.
That's the name of the solo record. That's my new record. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me what is. By the way, we compliment each other then, because I'm a young old man. But what are we talking about when we say old young man?
Well, I wrote that song. I've had it for a while, but yeah, that's kind of the idea. People have told me I'm an old soul, or I found myself for a long time. I was the youngest guy in the room, which has been, I have no regrets about that at all. I think and anymore now I'm in the middle. So I've become a bit of an old sage to a lot of younger artists that I work with through my nonprofit work, and it just, I try to be an advocate for artists in general. And I like to meet and if I can, a lot of people help me out. So I feel like there's a big pay it forward mentality. So with that being said, you know, I had a lot of mentors, and I had a lot of kind of big brothers and sisters, and and now I'm trying to, you know, be that for other people as much as
Mhm.
I can be.
Mhm.
Um, I think it means that I'm incredibly immature emotionally, and 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 my but at the same time I have trouble getting out of bed some days. Like I can't stay, like my sciatica will act up, and
Oh boy.
so I'm
Tell me
somewhere in the
about it, man.
middle of yeah. So
Yeah. Well, hey, I wouldn't ask you to, give us a long biography, and you mentioned you were from Ohio, but maybe just let's hit a couple of things. First, just kind of a provocative way of thinking about this, just high level. How do you describe yourself?
um I'm just, you know, I always liked when Dylan said I'm a song and dance man. You know, I always thought that was like the best answer to that question.
Yes, that's great.
So
That's
um
great. Yeah.
I'll just rip that off. If I can
Okay.
rip Bob Dylan off anymore, I'll probably do it about 15 more times in this interview. So
Well, as will I. But so when did you move from Ohio to Austin?
we
What year
moved in
would that have been?
December of 2004.
Okay. So you've
So
been there now a good 18 years. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I moved a lot when I was a kid. So I think, you know, I was born in Illinois. We lived in Indiana and a few different places, and the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and then high school in Cincinnati. And then once I was 17, I moved to Northeastern Ohio. It was the cheapest. It was the farthest away state school I could go to, and there was only one other person from my high school that was going there. So I was like, yeah, this will be fine. And so I went to Kent State University. Was there for a year. Transferred to Miami University in Ohio. Had a good time. Ended up getting cast in an independent film, and thought I was going to be a movie star. And then I was dating a chick, and she got an internship at Paramount and asked me to move to LA. So I dropped out of, you know, I was pretty much
Wow.
dropped out of school already. So I lived out in LA for a year, and that beat me up pretty good. And then I came back to Ohio and ended up back up at Kent State, and then started. Well, I joined that band. I started getting paid to play music, and um, I I still got about 2 years left, I think, if I ever wanted to finish. But I met my wife up there, and then we honestly, I was playing, you know, 5 6 nights a week at least around northeastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania, and um, my wife was bartending at night at one of the clubs that I played, and she worked at a hot dog shop, a coney shop in the daytime, and she did graduate, so she had a college degree doing this. And we moved into a friend of ours had this old house, and said if we cleaned out the basement, we could live there and save some money because we wanted to move to Austin. And really, all I knew about Austin was I had bugged the hell out of Karen Cleaves to let me. I didn't know her to open for Slade and at the Club Cafe in Pittsburgh. And then a few months later, before we moved, we went up to Newport Folk and just as spectators, and they were playing, and we talked to them, and you know, we told them, and I said, we're moving to Austin. We've never been there. We don't know anybody, but we're going to do that. And all I
Mhm.
knew about Austin was, you know, Slade's music or Towns, a huge Towns fan, and just the history and Austin City Limits, you know, like that
Mhm.
kind of
Sure.
stuff. And so it seemed like I had a subscription to No Depression.
Mhm.
You know, I was like, it seems like this is the place, and I didn't want to move back to LA. She's an actor. I didn't want to move out there again. Didn't like that. Couldn't afford to go to New York, and Nashville really didn't have the film, and they have it to some extent now, but the acting community wasn't maybe as vibrant as it may be now.
Mhm.
And the truth of it is that it was, at the time, it was cheaper to starve in Austin. Um,
That's
so we got an
changing.
apartment online and got approved and got a trailer hitch on the back of our Camry, and took what we could. And we were going to be here for 2 years and then try to move to New York, but we've been here since '04. And yeah, proud to
So
be an Austinite though. It's the longest I've ever lived anywhere, and the people, you know, a lot of things have changed here, but I, and it's hokey, but you know, we really do have a family here and a community that I don't see myself leaving anywhere. I don't know where else I would go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you can't put a value on that, a money value
Yeah.
on that. So
What I'm curious, there's a lot of things to love about Austin, and I'm guessing if I said what do you like most, it would have something to do with the family that you have there, the extended family and the music scene, and correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I'm curious, what do you like least about living in Austin?
least, I mean, the traffic probably.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, that
Yeah.
that's about it. I mean, I live in the barrio. I've been in this house since '07, and luckily my property taxes haven't gone through the roof like a lot of my friends have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so um it's getting more expensive here, but I'm dug in. And you know, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, we did actually have a tornado kind of come through
Yeah.
the other day, but it didn't hit. We were it was the first time in the whole time we lived here that's ever been even kind of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
um it's kind of a weather anomaly for the most part. I miss the beach. I like being by the beach, but at the same time I don't miss all the trouble that comes with that. So
Right. Right.
um but the food's good. It's good. I like to eat.
Indeed. Indeed.
And I do like the fact that, I mean, we just got through with South by, and I thought it was so nice that everybody was in such a good mood. It was great to see
Right.
you, and it was just
Yeah.
great to see so many people. But I remember a few years after we moved here, I didn't know anything about South by Southwest when we moved here. I'd never heard of it, honestly. I think I'd heard of it, but I had no idea what it was. And I'd say probably 5 or 6 years into living here, I remember distinctly that I was complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped myself and said, "What the hell are you doing? Like, you moved from, basically from Akron, which I'm not dogging Akron. I have a lot of love for a lot of friends up there and stuff, but there was nothing to do. I mean, in the scheme of things, like there were a couple things annually that would come up, and I knew everybody that played, and I knew every club, and I knew every bartender by their middle name almost, it seemed like, and that was boring, looking back on it. Whereas down here, there's something happening. It's almost too much sometimes, but there's
Right.
always something to do if you want to do something.
Yeah.
um and it's a great place to have a kid. I mean, I
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunities for my kid, and for us to do things as a family, and that's I mean, I'll be a broken record on that for a long time, but uh I can't that's just that's where my head is at all the time. I mean, that's the most important thing to me. If my friends and my family are happy, and then I'm happy. So
Right on. Right on. You mentioned complaining about South by. I've done that too, because first year I went was second or third year that they had it. And speaking of Peter Blackstock, Peter and I drove around from show to show like it was easy, right? Like,
yeah.
oh, let's go see this band here, and then we'll drive across town and see this band, and it's turned into such a carnival, and it's still awesome. And we need to remind ourselves, as you kind of pointed out there, that yeah, it's easy to complain about it. And by the way, I don't know if you saw the John D. Graham episode of Time to Connect, but when I brought up South by, he said, "Oh, you mean the Festival of Broken Dreams?" But on the traffic thing, that's why I moved away. I got to Texas in '73, discovered Austin pretty quickly and wanted to move there, but it took me a little over 20 years to get there. And the first song I wrote after I moved to Austin was a country song. The opening line was, "Los Angeles has moved to Austin, and I've been moved to move away." And I did. I couldn't hack the traffic for some reason. I don't know. I now think I was, that was a pretty lame excuse to leave Austin. But I'm only an hour and a half or a little less than 2 hours away, so it's kind of perfect. I'm out in the country, man, and I can get to Austin in a couple hours and get to Houston in an hour and a half, and it's a pretty nice situation. But let's see, man. Let's move on. I've got a couple of other things I want to lay on you. We've called Peter Blackstock's name a couple of times. How far do you go back with Peter? I'm just curious how you guys got started together.
Well, I mean, I mean, Peter's a friend now. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been friends for a few years. He actually gave Jamie Harris and I a ride from the Continental Club over to one of our little duo shows during during South by. So I got to see him and his wife, and they were so kind. So I got to share that experience with you. I've been driven around by Peter Blackstock and at South by Southwest.
South by Southwest, yeah.
So Peter, he was still living up in Washington when I moved here. So we had a mutual friend. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to let this phone blow up and being in on this conversation. He was up there. I mean, I knew of him in Grant Alden. I mean, like I said, that was like the only magazine I subscribed to. And that's the genre of music I really radiate towards. So when he moved back here, I don't know exactly how. I think I may have met him at one of the Towns tributes. It's always on March 7th, and the Cactus was, and in my heart it still is my home club. I mean, when I moved to town, I got a call from Slade. I didn't even know my phone number yet, and he had oddly just played the town I moved from, and people told him like, hey, this guy's going down to Austin, and I still don't know to this day. I don't know how I got my phone number, like my landline. Wow. But he asked me to come out and play the Cactus. So I did that with Slade, and that was in December of 2004, and then I just started hanging out there. I started running sound for the open mic, then I hosted the open mic, and then just because I'm a kind of a music history nerd, and there's so much history there, and Griff Lundberg really became a great friend to me and a big advocate for me, and was throwing me on a lot of stuff for years. And the Towns thing was, I remember we were in the office and he was chain smoking, and he goes, you do any Town songs? And I said, I could do 12 of them right now, and so I'm betting that I met Peter at one of those things. Probably, a year he moved back or something like that. Cause I play it every year with Butch, and Butch Hancock has become, a very dear friend of mine, and Jimmy Dale, of course. And so I'm and again, and not to name drop, but those are the people that I've been lucky enough to have come into my life and be supportive of what I do. And so that doesn't hurt when, I consider Peter a wonderful music writer and an esteemed, very knowledgeable resource. So if he met me when I was hanging out with those guys, the Flatlanders, that probably gave me a leg up. I'll just say.
Yeah. Well, Peter's actually the guy who turned me on to you. He's the one who made me aware of you, and so I appreciate that. Well, I can't believe how fast time's going here, and I don't want to keep you too long, and I hope you'll do a song for us. But let me hit you up with some kind of rapid fire questions. Is that
sure?
Fair? You ready for that? And as I've told everyone else on this show, if you can refuse to answer, you can answer but refuse to give a short answer and give a longer answer, or you can just give a short answer. The first one's probably, it's going to be difficult for you to do a short answer. I just wanted to ask you about Jamie Harris, and I know you guys have kind of a special relationship, and I asked her about you when I talked to her, as you'll see when that episode comes out. But let me ask you about her. So what's the deal with you and Jamie?
Well, I don't know if it shows. I don't know. I can't see my picture real small for me, but I'm sure I just got a big shit-eating grin on my face. I just light up just thinking about Jamie.
Yeah,
she's sometimes you meet people in your life, I think, that you're supposed to meet, and besides her being incredibly talented, she's one of the few people I've successfully, consistently co-written songs with. We wrote a song together. We wrote one that's on my solo record she sings on, and then we wrote one that's on her record that's my favorite thing I've ever been a part of, called Love Is Gonna Come Again, and that'll come out on her record next year.
She performed that one. She performed that one.
She played that one
on Matt Souther. Yeah. It's
pretty good, right? I mean,
it's a beautiful song. Yeah.
I can separate myself and that's something else. Like when you write something, you can kind of be very critical, or know that's too close to you. But I could listen to her sing, anything. She could sing the phone book and I'd be happy.
Yeah.
But I love singing with her. I love traveling with her. I don't know. I have nothing bad to say about Jamie Harris, and I never will. She's definitely my best music friend. And yeah, I'm so excited that people are starting to figure it out and know about her more. And she's doing great things with Mary, and Mary is awesome. And you know, she's given her a platform as well to do her own music and get heard by her audience. And I just, you know, I would lay down in the fastest, you know, I'd lay down on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for Jamie Harris. There's no doubt. So she's the best.
Yeah.
And she's kind of part of Western Youth. She's in the band. She's just not always around, but every time she is, we're always happy when she's there. So
very cool. You've mentioned a couple of names, and I was going to ask you, who are your heroes, music or otherwise? You've mentioned a couple of names. Anyone else you just want to call out real quickly before we move on? Heroes of yours, people who have been very important to you in your life?
Musically, you know, Dylan, of course, but John Prine. John Prine has always been my number one guy. And then, is he up there too?
Oh yeah, there it is. He's up there.
Yeah, Sweet Revenge. Yeah. So yeah, that's a whole other story that we don't have time for, of how I really got hip to them. And my dad was a big fan, and I never got it until I was in college. And then a guy I lived with, we were walking home from a party one night and found a CD wallet in the street, and John Prine Live was in there, and Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash Storyteller was in there too, and then a bunch of crap. But those two records really, I was 19, and it hit me, you know, it threw me for a loop. And then I got hip to Todd Snyder via John Prine, and or, you know, his connection, who was on Away Records at the time. And then I saw him perform, and that was a big deal for me. That changed a lot of things for me. I gave up wanting to be an actor, and said I can tell stories and, you know, make people laugh, and then turn around and make them cry, and or try to, at least.
Yeah.
So those guys were a big deal. You know, Tom Waits is a huge influence. Randy Newman. And of course, you know, the rock and roll side of things, you got, you know, I'm a huge Jimi Hendrix fan, Stones, Beatles, because I grew up being a huge Beatles fan. So nothing really earth shattering there. I wish I had there's some other kind of deep cats, but, you know, and Slade and Guy Clark was kind enough to let me do support for him a few times. And Adam Carroll, I think, was another guy who I met right after I moved here and got to tour with them a lot. And I think he's a genius. So there's a lot of really talented people out there, and you kind of try to take a little bit, absorb what you can, and if you can reimagine it, that's kind of how I'm kind of go about it, I guess.
Right on. Man, I've got so many questions that we're not going to get to. I hope we can do part 2 of this conversation. There's so many things I want to ask you about, but let me hit you with a couple more quick ones.
Sure.
Who's someone that you would like to share a stage with that you have not had the opportunity to do so?
Well, it was always John Prine, and then I never got to. I got to meet him.
That.
Yeah, I got to meet him a couple of times. I've gotten to play with Jason Wilbur. I got to open for him, and Dave Jakes, and he played on Slade's record where he cut one of my songs, and so, you know, that was always the goal, and, you know, unfortunately it's not going to happen. But you know, I'm a big Wilco fan. I'm a really big Wilco fan. I'd love to someday do something with Tweedy, and those guys were, you know, my sister sort of knew them in a way and introduced me. So we had some good times and some nice access for a few years. But yeah, boy, I tell you right now, you know, more attainable scale, there's a girl named Erin Ray, who's out of Nashville, who made a record a few years ago that I think is just brilliant. And she's just put out a new record. I mean, if there was a way to do something with her, I'd welcome that. Or, you know, I watched Patterson Hood. I mean, honestly, Will Johnson's a friend of mine, but we've never really played together. I'd love for Western Youth to play with Centric Dramatic.
Man, that'd be
a heartbeat. or
That'd be
Drive
a
By
kick
Truckers. When I watched Patterson Hood, I was like, man, just
for
bands that
all
are,
three of those
actually
bands.
play rock and roll,
Yeah,
So
yeah. I would love to see the bill with Western Youth, Drive By Truckers, and Centromatic. That would be
you would love to see the bill. I would.
that would be magical. All right, a couple more quick questions, and then and hopefully you'll sing a song to take us out here. What are you most proud of?
My kid.
Mm-hmm. What pisses you off?
Ignorance and stupidity.
If you had to pick one album to listen to the rest of your life, and you only get to listen to one, I know it's a ridiculous question, but it's kind of a cool Rorschach. What might you pick?
I mean, honestly, I probably would pick that John Prine live record. I mean, I just think that it's got everything that I need. It's simple, it's perfect, and it's a live record. I mean, so it's a comp, but it's it gets me where I gotta be.
Nice. So what do you have a practice to deal with the slings and arrows of life? Do you meditate? Do you have what's your method for dealing with the shit that we all have to put up with?
Well, I definitely don't drink as much as I used to. That's what I did for a long time. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't seem to have a lot of time. I love the idea of meditating, and I was doing a lot of yoga. My wife works for a company that's what they do, and I always find so much benefit to taking those, taking some time for yourself and focusing. Am I good at that? Not really. I'm not really good at taking the time. Playing by myself, playing guitar when I get a chance, I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
A friend of ours gave us they moved into a house that had a hot tub and they didn't want it, so we got a hot tub during the pandemic. And for a while I was going out and sitting in the hot tub, like
right on. Yeah.
Gonna write a book or a record called Hot Tub Tunes, but I haven't done that yet. So
right on. Okay, 2 more questions, man. What happens when we die?
We hope that people remember us for the good things we did. I think that I don't know about heaven or hell or any of that, but I know that what you leave behind is the effect and the impact that you have on other people. So,
which leads into my last question, which is, when you are dead and gone, what do you hope people say about you?
Good dad, a mensch. That's a term I strive for, a mensch. Yeah, I mean, I hope that people will say that he was a loving person and tried to help other people love each other. That's what we all should do every day. So,
man, brother, that's great. I suspect people not only will say that about you, they're already saying that about you. Man, I'd love to hear a song. I think everyone would love to hear a song. If you don't mind playing one for us to take us out.
Sure.
It's been a great conversation with you, my friend. I hope we get to do part 2 down the road. What are you going to play for us?
I would love to do that, John. Anytime. Just give me a shout. This is a song that I've had for years and years and years. I wrote this when I was living at Slade's house over on the east side before it became what it is now. It's a lot different now, but it's a song called Haystack that I've never really put on a record, but yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, great.
I stare at your front door from the place you left me stranded, turning to walk the rocks back to the curb. All the hope I had found a hole in my back pocket, but the one inside my billfold was for her. I stumbled like a fool through the bums and beat up houses, the harlots on a street without a sign. I found the only needle in this haystack of a city. I found what I was after just in time. I was down for the count. I said over and out on my shortwave radio. I gave up on my dreams, and the balancing beams were 10,000 feet from the floor. My tires went flat, and the brim on my hat had been matted down too bad to be restored. But for now, I'm all right, at least for tonight. I won't have to hurt anymore. But for now, I'm all right, at least for tonight. I won't have to hurt anymore.
Nice, man. Nice. I said that was my last question before, but I have to ask you a question now about that, which is if you had to choose someone to cover that song, you can choose anybody you want, alive or dead, to cover that song, who would it be?
Ooh. Man, I don't know. It's like my song. It's like my Sleepy Time Down South for Louis Armstrong. It's my closer.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man.
Who would sing that one? I don't know. A jazz singer, probably. Live or dead?
Live or dead?
Billie Holiday.
Yes, I can hear that for sure, man. I can hear that for sure. Hey, man, thank you so much. You are an old young man for sure. I can see that you are firmly in the tradition, but you're new, and that's so cool. I feel very fortunate to know you, and I appreciate so much you taking the time to connect. And again, I hope to get you on here for another episode down the road. But for now, man, thank you so much, and I appreciate you, and we'll catch you down the road.
Thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure.